The Heat held an open scrimmage at FTX Arena. While it's still the preseason, there's a lot to be excited about, including Bam Adebayo's three-point shooting, Erik Spoelstra's creative lineups, and much more. We break down who stood out and what it all means on today's Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast covering all things Miami Heat. However you might be tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your own favorite podcast app. Thank you so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with my co-host David Ramil. We're recording this after the Heat's open scrimmage on Monday night. We'll talk about some hints that we got as to what lineups Erik Spoelstra might be using when the regular season begins and other standouts from the scrimmage. But we have to start with Bam Adebayo, who apparently now is a prolific three-point shooter, David. Now, before we get to this, we should just note that this scrimmage was not televised, right? There's no official box score. This is not a real thing that happened, although I'll tell you, watching Bam Adebayo practice and then take threes there at FTX Arena, where I was Monday night, by my count, Bam took, or made 3 of them, took almost 10 of them in the game, was very willing to be taking them. David, knowing that this was an informal scrimmage, that it's basically played like the All-Star game is. Nobody's really trying. Nobody's going to foul anybody hard. You're going to take a lot of threes. I think the team probably took 50 threes at least in this game. But on a scale of 1 to 10, how big of a deal do you think this is?
At 20.
Ooh.
I think it's a legitimate thing. I think his comments post game. I think Spo's comments post game indicate this is the way his mindset has changed and evolved. Yeah. I think the team is trending that way. And they have multiple bigs who can shoot the three-pointer. It's not just Bam. It's Omer Yurtsev. It's Dwayne Dedmon. All of them stretch bigs to some degree. And I think it's legitimate. When you're looking at Bam, again, specifically his comments saying that bigs need to shoot more threes in today's NBA. And I think he understood that challenge. He's been challenged that way before by multiple media members, some of which are on this podcast. I just think it's, I think he's understood that he needs to be a little bit more versatile with his offensive repertoire because he's going to be spacing the floor, and it just provides a little bit more room for Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry, and others to get to the rim.
Here's the full quote from Erik Spoelstra from tonight. He'll have those at the top of the floor, those being the three-pointers. He'll be open there, and if he can make a couple and keep the defense honest, I think that'll be part of his evolution. Like I said, Bam took almost a dozen three-pointers tonight. I was watching him during the warm-ups right before the scrimmage started. He was launching threes a ton. In training camp, he had been practicing spacing the floor, as had Omer Yurtsev and Dwayne Dedmon. This is something that they want them to do. I like how you point out how Erik Spoelstra was asked about it by certain media members. I was not one of those media members tonight, David. I withheld all of my Bam Adebayo three-point questions to Erik Spoelstra tonight. But I was a little upset because Erik Spoelstra all of a sudden was very happy to talk about how Bam needs to be taking threes all of a sudden. He was like, yeah, this is just the natural evolution of his game. And I was like, where was this last year, Spo, when you were yelling at me during preseason? But it's true. It's true. And I think
how do they feel? You saw them
in rhythm,
live,
in rhythm,
right?
Right.
That's the way you captured some great footage of his first three-pointer. I think to open up the scrimmage, and everything looked fluid. Like he's got the ball, and what we've seen from him in the past is just holding, looking who's cutting, trying to make that entry pass, or trying to find somebody, or maybe even just spraying it out to another perimeter shooter, maybe even setting a screen for a Duncan Robinson or something like that. That wasn't the case. He had the ball, he saw daylight, let it fly. That's the way he's got to be.
And that's where they're going to come in the flow of the offense, right? That's exactly what Spo was saying after the game. Like, that's where Bam is getting the ball. He's going to have it in those dribble handoff spots, those triple threat positions right there at the top of the key, or even extended out to the three-point arc. And he made like 3 of those, all 3 of those threes that he made, I think were kind of just step into them, left hand to right hand, and just go and step right into that 3. So they were in rhythm. They weren't quite like pull-up jumpers, right? He wasn't pulling up like Tyler Herro typically does.
Off the dribble.
But he doesn't. He also good. Like, we don't want that. I liked that they were just coming within the flow of the offense. And you and I have talked about this, man. Like, those are gonna be there if he just takes a couple steps out beyond that 3-point line, and instead of it just being default dribble handoff or dart to the rim or set a screen or something like that, if he just adds that other wrinkle of maybe I'll take the 3 here, all of a sudden that dash to the rim becomes a little bit more open. Those screens become just a little bit easier to set, and those dribble handoffs and those passes that he takes out of them, those defenders are just a little bit slower to close out on the person that he is passing to. That 3-pointer, to Spo's point, keeps defenses honest, and I think he basically laid it out for us. If he can just make a couple of those a game, that's it. That's all it's going to take. Bam doesn't need to come out and start being Karl Anthony Towns. He doesn't need to come out and be Dirk Nowitzki, right? If he just makes a couple a game. Now, granted, you went 20 on the 1 to 10 big deal scale. I have no idea. I hesitate to even rank it.
Because you don't think it's going to be a new wrinkle in the offense moving forward?
He wants it, man. Like he's trying it. And that was the thing is, early in that game, every time you would set a pick, he would pop immediately, whether he got the ball or not. Like, he really wanted to flash the fact that he had that skill now, that he has been developing that 3-pointer. I was watching him in the warm-ups. All he was doing was taking threes for the most part, or like mid-range jumpers and things like that. He wants to show off this range that he's apparently been working on. It is a priority. I think we're going to see it in the regular season. To what degree, I don't know. I don't think that we'll see it with the velocity that we saw tonight. I don't think we'll see it just like every other time he's touching the ball, he's launching from 3. And by the way, again, I'll say it again to underscore it. Good. We don't want that from Bam Adebayo. But if we're talking about going from 13 shots to what he is now saying, 18 quality shots per game, if those are 5 more shots per game than he averaged last year, if 2 of those are 3-pointers, I think that's good. 1.5 on average. That's a good number for Bam. Coming from a place where he took, by my count, 0 in-rhythm threes during the season last year.
It's not, I don't think they're going to be running set plays for him. He wasn't flaring out to the corner. They weren't setting screens for him to get open from the 3-point line. That was basically just, look, you catch the ball at the top, see what the defense gives you, and if they give you the space, make it happen. Yeah. Make the attempt. And that's fine. Like, I don't know that we'll see them every night. I could see a minor setback at some point early on in the season if he starts taking them with some frequency and they don't fall right away. We know with Bam sometimes, and with all shooters in general, they can have their confidence tied to their shooting prowess or even their willingness to shoot. We saw it even with Jimmy. The regular season Jimmy was not the playoff Jimmy that was shooting him at almost 30-something% or 40%. This was if Bam starts taking those 3-pointers and they're not falling, I could see him become a little bit more hesitant as the season progresses. Right. I'd like to see them hit early on so that he feels much more comfortable, because again, we saw a more comfortable version, or at least you saw, along with some fans there that were supporting a good cause at FTX Arena. Shout out to the Heat organization for their continued support of breast cancer research, trying to do what they can. Erik Spoelstra addressing the crowd. Of course, he and his family had a cancer scare that was not widely publicized late last year. And they continue to do something for a good cause. My mom's a breast cancer survivor, so I just wanted to point that out because I think it's again a fantastic cause.
It was a really cool moment, and like Spo pointed out, they haven't been able to do this now for almost 3 years, I think, because of the pandemic and everything that's been going on, and the seasons that have been cut short. But a cool moment during the intros that each of these players came in with a physician who treats cancer patients and then a cancer survivor. So the one woman who came out with Jimmy Butler could not have been more excited. It was just really cool. And you're just watching all these people come out and you can't help but smile and maybe even get a little emotional. It was really, really cool by the Miami Heat, like you said. Max Strus was really getting along with his survivor that he had come out with. Like, they were talking during the entire intros about what? I don't know. But
sounds like my mom was out there alongside Max Strus. She gets lost staring into Max's eyes.
They're like pools of blue. Erik Spoelstra gave us some really interesting hints as to what we could expect from the Heat's lineups this season. We'll tell you what that is next. But first, David, tell them about Built Bar.
Well, if you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you're depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Are you ready? Delicious, indulgent cookie dough. Who doesn't love cookie dough? They're covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to your new favorite. Cookie dough chunk puffs have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, They're 100% covered in real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without a hassle of making it. Plus, it's healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories. They've got a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. Better than actual cookie dough, that's for sure. Run to Built.com to snag a box for you and the family. The holidays are coming. This is the perfect gift. It'll be the perfect treat. You can find a really good hiding place or just hoard them for yourself if that's what you want. Like all Built bars, a new cookie dough chunk puff is covered in 100% real chocolate. That means they're healthy and tasty. Chocolate-covered cookie dough with a light, fluffy texture. So good. You're going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff. Whether you need a snack for your workout, a late-night treat, or just need to grab a quick bite, Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than the candy bar. Ditch the calories, fat, and sugar. Grab yourself a Built bar. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your order if you use the promo code LOCK15 at Built.com.
Thank you again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you check out the Ultimate Pro Basketball Preview starting October 10th, a 6-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NBA season. The local team experts and the NBA insiders of the Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey all combining into one ultimate NBA preview. Starting October 10th, search for the Ultimate Pro Basketball Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. David, Erik Spoelstra dropped a pretty great hint tonight in two different ways. I'll get to the second way in a moment. The first way was just what the starting lineup was for the red team. Kyle Lowry, Tyler Herro, Jimmy Butler, Kayla Martin, Bam Adebayo. We had also seen reports that in the Bahamas in training camp, that a lot of times he was starting those scrimmages in the Bahamas with the same starting lineup. Now, the white team, I should just mention, Marcus Garrett, Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, Dwayne Dedmon. Those were basically your starters there. And look, they switched teams in the scrimmage. You kind of go back and forth a little bit. Like Yurtseven ended up on Bam's team after he was against Bam, and so they were able to play Bam and Yurt together. Again, we'll get to that in a moment. But to me, the big takeaway is, all right, it's Kyle Lowry, it's Tyler Herro, it's Jimmy Butler, it's Kayla Martin at the 4, as you and I have always expected, and Bam Adebayo at center. There will be experimenting with other lineups. And when asked about it after the game, Spo did mention, look, don't read into the lineups too much. Mm-hmm. But in saying that, he gave me, and this was the second note, he gave me the biggest takeaway in terms of lineups of the night, where he said, look, don't read too much into it. We can go with our speed lineup, which was, the Kayla Martin at the 4 kind of lineups and those things. Max Strus and Duncan Robinson, we saw them together on the same team quite a bit. We can go with those speed lineups, or we can go with our big lineups. And then he goes on to say, that's the nature of this roster. We're going to be able to be versatile in that way. We're going to mix and match a lot. And this is the thing that I want to take away, David, and the thing that I want to stress. He says then, you'll see both the speed and the big lineups this season. That to me is key.
I like that he's identifying, right? That he's categorized them already. We've got our speed lineup. We got our big lineup. This is the personnel for each. And even then, you still have some other options on the bench that you could plug and play at either of those lineups, I think.
And so for every Heat fan that wants to see Omer Yurtseven and Bam Adebayo together in the front court, you will, at least early in the season. You could also see Bam Adebayo and Dwayne Dedmon together in the front court. Dwayne Dedmon also took a 3 early in the game. We saw Omer Yurtseven take a few threes in the game. So Bam, Dedmon, they're all trying to figure out how to space the floor for each other. I have some notes on that when I get to my notebook dump later on, but I just love that Spo is acknowledging it. Look, I think Heat fans, when we're talking about lineups, sometimes it feels like they think that there's only one lineup that the Heat are going to play all game. Right. That's not true. There's going to be a starting lineup that Spo is going to be most comfortable with starting, and then there's going to be other lineups throughout the 48 minutes of that game. And he admitted so much as to say, you're going to see us go big with Bam at power forward next to another center. You're going to see us go small with Kayla Martin at the 4, Jimmy Butler at the 4 surrounded by shooters. You're going to see all that stuff. And I do think, and I want to get back to this, David, the starting lineup, I think we're here. I think it's Kyle Lowry, Tyler Herro, Jimmy Butler, Kayla Martin, Bam Adebayo. Spo and Tyler Herro, both, we talked to them after the game. Both of them were quick to say, hey, nothing is set in stone. And maybe that's true, but it really feels like something weird would have to happen for that not to be the starting lineup.
I almost feel like I'm channeling Spo here. Maybe I've just talked to him for too many years, but what is this obsession with the starting lineup? Like we're all so programmed to kind of just like mull it over and like, who's going to start? Like it defines the next 47 minutes after that. We see it all the time. Like established starters pick up foul trouble You don't just fold up and go home. You just go, oh, well, you know what? Nikola Jokic, he picked up 2 fouls. I guess we're just going to throw in the towel. That's not how it works. You have multiple players who can fill in at any opportunity. You have versatility on this roster. You've got different lineups that you can incorporate depending on different situations, and that's fine. I like the starting lineup. I like Caleb's comments. Something he didn't tell us when we spoke to him at Media Day. He spoke to Anthony Chang recently, and he said, you know what? It's kind of a disrespect. It feels like disrespecting him because so many people are questioning whether or not he can start at the 4, or whether or not he's even capable of guarding it. As you pointed out many times on the show, he did that at an elite level last year. He's athletic enough. When he explained it to us, he said, you know what? I have the strength. I've got the speed. And it's not like it matters in this defense anyway. So we're all kind of just focusing on the starting lineup. But I think this is it moving forward. And moreover, it doesn't really even matter because things are going to change. This offense, that starting lineup has their strengths. They've got maybe some weaknesses, but I think those can be mitigated because of the overall strength of the starters alongside Caleb or whoever else is in that starting lineup. And you like seeing Tyler Herro out there as well, as we predicted after signing that extension. That's the kind of money you give to a starter who's expected to produce at a high level, not a high-level bench player as he was last year. So this is it. This is it moving forward. At least I think so. I think you speak confidently as well that it seems like this is going to be the starting lineup tomorrow when they take on the Timberwolves here at FTX Arena.
Right. And look, we might see some different starting lineups in the preseason. Sure. I don't know if Jimmy Butler will play tomorrow. Like, I'm not reporting that he won't. It's the preseason. Who knows? Like, who cares?
Everybody takes time off.
But yeah, I'll push back a little bit on that. The starting lineup does not matter because I do think it sets a tone for the game, and it matters to somebody like Tyler Herro. He's been very not shy about that. It sets the tone for the rest of the game. It just sets, okay, this is the starting point, and then we make adjustments from there. And the one thing about Erik Spoelstra that he's always going to do is he's going to not just prioritize defense, but he's going to prioritize versatility in that starting group because depending on what the matchup is, you don't want to be changing your starting lineup game to game, and you want to be as versatile as you can be regardless of what game it is to start games so that you can, maneuver against a bigger team or a speedier team or a smaller team, whatever it's going to be. And I do think that starting lineup gives the Heat that. That's 4 versatile high-level defenders around Tyler Herro, and Tyler Herro, who is your most versatile, dynamic offensive threat. Player. And so it's the most balanced lineup. It's the lineup that gets your 4 best players on the court, no question. And then Kayla Martin, like, you could argue he's the 5th best player on the Heat. Why? I wouldn't say that he's not. He's right there. I think it's him, Max Strus, those kinds of guys. So Victor Oladipo, we'll see what he looks like coming back. I think that's the best, question. Most balanced lineup.
Here's a quick question. If Luke Babbitt was on his roster, would he start over Caleb?
No.
Wow.
Not if Tyler Herro is starting because Luke Babbitt couldn't guard anybody either. And
wow, the Babbitt disrespect. Look how far you've fallen, my friend. I can't believe it.
I got more Babbitt disrespect all season long. I don't know why. I like Luke Babbitt. I don't know why I became this guy. It somehow became my brand to not like Luke Babbitt. And whatever. Who cares? Funny moment, too, right after the game, talking to Tyler Herro. He was asked about the extension, mentioned that Kayla Martin, all the teammates reached out to Tyler Herro, congratulated him, and he was you could tell actually really grateful about that. He was really emotional and really happy about the extension. I mean, I would be too if I had
120 million reasons to be grateful,
dollars
buddy.
Coming my way. But mentioned that Kayla Martin called him after and said, "Hey, by the way, you need to buy the old team Rolex watches." And then Tyler Herro saying, "I shut that down real quick afterwards," and that got a laugh from the media room. So, Kayla Martin, Tyler Herro, best buds now, going to be starting this season, not the way that they were last season, alongside Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo. Again, not reporting it, but all indications are going that way. And then after that, look, we saw Yurtseven and Bam play together. We saw Duncan Robinson and Max Strus play together in certain lineups. We saw Marcus Garrett running point at times late in the scrimmage. Maybe not much to take away from the Marcus Garrett note there, but I got a lot more notes from the scrimmage. Back here with Locked On Heat, talking about our takeaways from the Miami Heat scrimmage at FTX Arena Monday night. We mentioned that Bam Adebayo is taking threes. We mentioned that Tyler Herro looks like he's ready to be in that starting lineup alongside Kayla Martin, and we feel pretty confident that is going to be the starting lineup. Kyle Lowry, Tyler Herro, Jimmy Butler, Kayla Martin, and Bam Adebayo. But got some other notes that I want to get to, David. So I'm just going to go through them. I just kept I got my yellow notepad, and I'm just going to go through them, and you stop me as we talk through them. The first thing is the double big lineup. We saw it.
Yep.
We saw it originally. Bam Adebayo was on opposite teams to the first quarter of the scrimmage of Dwayne Dedmon and Omer Yurtseven. I was like, oh boy, maybe we're not going to see it. And then I realized this is a fake game. It doesn't matter. There are no rules. And of course, what ended up happening was everybody just changed teams throughout the entire game. So what ended up happening in the second quarter was Omer Yurtseven took off his white jersey, put on a red jersey, and then he was on Bam Adebayo's team, who was on the red team to begin with. And then immediately to start the second quarter, we saw Yurt and Bam, the Bam and the big Yurt lineup. And what I found interesting about it was that in today's NBA, it is hard to play those double big lineups, but when they do work, one of those bigs acts as a floor spacer. Now, Bam Adebayo is not a floor spacer, or has not been a floor spacer until he became, Karl Anthony Towns Eastern Conference tonight. But and then Omer Yurtseven, everybody says he's a floor spacer. He showed that he could space the floor in Las Vegas Summer League. He told us that he could space the floor. We haven't really seen it at the NBA level to a degree that matters.
Yeah.
So none of them are proven floor spacers. So I found it interesting that when those two guys were on the court together, that one of them was always trying to space the floor for the other anyway. And so there would be moments where Yurt would set the screen in the middle of the floor and then dive or pop or whatever, and then Bam would just be parked out in the corner, PJ Tucker style. And then there were other times vice versa. Bam was in the middle of the floor doing Bam things, triple threat position, making plays for others. Yurt pulling his PJ Tucker impression out of the bag, parked in a corner, just waiting for the ball to come his way. That's probably how this is going to look, because I don't really see another way for it to look. My only question is, how long and how many threes does Bam and or Yurt / Dwayne Dedmon, because he could be in those lineups too, how many threes do they have to make early in the season for teams to start respecting them and actually close out on them? Because it's one thing to just stand in the corner. It's another thing if teams are just ignoring you while you're standing in the corner, because that's just not going to work if that's the case, probably.
Yeah, I don't see it. I don't see that wrinkle gaining that kind of respect at any time soon. Like, it has to be something, I think, that we have to see almost consistently from, I'd say, the first half of the season before defenses go, okay, this is something that we have to consider when these two bigs are out in the lineup. Maybe it won't take quite that long, but I wouldn't be too far off, I think, in saying that, just because, again, we have not seen that. I don't think either of them have that kind of reputation. Like, I mean, if they don't shoot threes every game, or I mean, even tonight's scrimmage, right? Neither of them shot a corner 3-pointer, even as they were providing that floor spacing.
Yurt may have I think Yurt attempted one, and Bam may have attempted one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's more than I would have expected, to be honest with you. But even still, I mean, Miami has rolled out the zone defense, and still teams kind of get thrown off by it. I know it's a little different, obviously, but I just don't see teams quite expecting that. And look, that both those players are smart enough, high IQ players that they'll recognize when they can leak out to the corner there. You'll probably have Jimmy or Kyle, maybe even Tyler on some occasions, driving to the hoop. All of them great passers to be able to find whoever's out in that corner there. I could see a play breaking down there, or maybe Jimmy drawing a double team as he goes to the hoop and then finding a wide open Bam or Yurt in the corner, just as he did with PJ Tucker so frequently. Like, PJ was not the fourth option and he's set play, and yet he wound up taking a lot of 3-pointers because he was so wide open, because he wasn't garnering that kind of respect early on in the season.
PJ really doesn't get guarded in the corner. Like, I know he shoots like 45% from there, but he's never been Miami Heat, Milwaukee Bucks, Houston Rockets. Like, teams have never really closed out on him for whatever reason. They just kind of let him shoot it. I guess it's because the teams that the teams that he was on, there were superstar players that demanded double teams, and they said, you know what, if we're going to sag off anybody, we're going to sag off of Jimmy Butler, Giannis, James Harden. You know what I mean? Like, better to double team those guys and then just let PJ shoot, because the thing with PJ Tucker is he's not very dynamic as an offensive player. We saw him get to that floater game a little bit, those baseline drives last year for Miami. That was more than he did in Houston or Milwaukee in previous seasons. We'll see what it looks like in Philadelphia.
You know what? As an offshoot of this, not to go too deep into this, but I can imagine Bam Adebayo getting the ball, a defender flying out to try and close out and challenge that shot, and then Bam putting the ball down the floor, having a wide open baseline drive.
That's exactly where I was going. And so the way that they would run their offense, and the way that they did, to your point, like, this is a team that found ways. Sometimes it would stall out and they would get in the mud, but overall, they found ways to create offense with limited amount of space last year. And so it's not as if, like, the IQ of Jimmy Butler Kyle Lowry and Bam Adebayo is such that they'll figure it out, right? They'll figure it out one way or the other. You would like to increase that spacing, but I think those opportunities will be there early in the season, because if you're running offense on one side, whether it's Bam running dribble handoffs and nobody guarding Yurt on the other side, Bam or Jimmy or Kyle can throw that cross-court pass easily and get it to Yurt for that wide open three. It's up to him to make it. And vice versa. If you're doing it with Yurtseven on one side of the floor, nobody's going to be guarding Bam on the weak side. And for the most part, those two guys were separated. Like, you don't have those guys stacked. You don't have like a double high-low thing happening, right?
Yeah, you have no horn sets where both of them setting screens are on top of the key or anything.
I guess you could consider it horns, but they were so spread out. Like, they were not on the elbows next to each other the way that like Chris Bosh and Josh McRoberts were. Shout out to those guys. Flashback. Oof. But like they were way more spread out. So like wide horns, I guess is the way to say it. So I look, again, informal scrimmage. They're probably not. I didn't see Erik Spoelstra out of his seat, let alone calling plays.
But
so we'll see what would happen.
You could see it though, right? Like even as we're talking about this, and again, I know it's just preseason. We have to hedge our expectations here. But you can see like the madman, the mad scientist, Erik Spoelstra, kind of tinkering this.
Yes.
Having that double big screen there, and then one flaring out to the corner, another one rolling and cutting towards the rim, and then maybe even a shooter like Max Tyler or somebody else kind of flaring out and having a wide open look, because they just create chaos on offense. We've seen that so many times from Spo.
And this was Spo's influence. Like, I don't think this was scrambled egg style offense for the Heat with Yurt and Bam just deciding to be in those places. I think that Spo laid that out as the foundation of their double big lineup in the Bahamas, and we saw a little bit of that, like the very surface level of that tonight in the scrimmage. Some more notes. Duncan Robinson was amazing, and I hate that it took us 27 minutes into the podcast to get here, but Duncan Robinson looked great. He looked confident. He was launching with no hesitation. He was moving as well as he always has. Duncan Robinson's off-ball movement is so underrated. I think it's second to none to anybody outside of Golden State. I really do.
Right.
And so he looked great. He was launching with no hesitation. He was making a bunch of threes too, and he looked good. Defensively, he was good at team defense. He got beat a couple of times one-on-one, as to be expected. They weren't calling a ton of fouls, but they were calling a few fouls tonight. I don't know that Duncan Robinson got called for a foul. Nothing jumped off to me. He could have gotten one, but I don't remember it.
Getting a little home cooking, maybe?
Maybe they were just giving him some confidence there. I don't know. But Duncan Robinson looked great, and that's a great wrinkle because he's going to have to bounce back. And by the way, he probably played the most minutes tonight, if we're no official box score. But he was on the court. It was probably him and Max Strus were probably on the court the longest. And I think they just wanted to get some shots up. It kind of felt that way.
Here's where I feel like I'm being somewhat biased, because as much as I want to read into Bam's shooting as something that's going to be sustainable, I'm not sure what Duncan's role is moving forward. Like, I know that's going to dismay a lot of listeners, but I'm not sure how he finds a way onto the floor. Like, he might be improved. He might be more confident. If that's the case, I'm happy to hear that, because seeing him struggle through last year was not great. At the same time, I just not sure whose minutes he's going to be taking over. You still have Max. You still have Gabe Vincent. You still have other players that are going to earn minutes at various positions there. And I'm just not sure where you're going to be able to carve out minutes for Duncan regularly.
Yeah, I mean, Spo, it looks like he's going to have to go 10 or 11 deep early in the season. But I'll tell you, if Duncan Robinson is shooting like he did 2 years ago, if he's making 40+% of his threes, he's got to get on the floor because he's a weapon. And when Spo goes to those speed lineups, Duncan Robinson could be a big part of that. We'll see. It's competitive. To your point, it's not. There's nothing set in stone for him. He's going to have to earn the minutes this year. He's going to have to. Kayla Martin looked awesome. He looks big, like noticeably muscular. I know you and I just sat next to him for a while, but like seeing him play basketball on the court next to other basketball players, he looked big. So he definitely put on that weight like he told us to play power forward. Was moving really well, high energy, nothing new with Kayla Martin, all the things we come to expect. Made 3 3-pointers in the first half of that game, which I thought was really interesting. He told us like one of the things that he wanted to do was maintain that 3-point percentage. Shot 41% last year after shooting it in the high 29% or something like that 2 years ago. Bounced back 41% from 3-point range. He wants to continue to shoot like that. It looked good. And then Tyler Herro, he looked good too, man. He's scoring at all three levels. He was taking some body contact, wasn't shying away. He used screens. He didn't use screens. And to me, what was interesting was seeing him play. What I was looking at too, going into this, What does he look like? How does he change his game playing next to Jimmy and Bam and Kyle Lowry? By the way, another note, Jimmy Butler did not take a shot. Didn't take a shot, and you kind of knew that right away. You kind of knew it right. Well, I mean, people paid $1 to get to the game. It would have been nice if he took one shot, but whatever. Tyler Herro playing off of them was something I was looking at. It doesn't look all that different. It just looks like where I was praising Duncan Robinson for his off-ball movement. I didn't see that tonight from Tyler Herro a lot, but that I think will have to come with more time and as Jimmy starts forcing his own
is that a possibility where they could start running Tyler off screens? I mean, he's just so effective with the ball, creating shot opportunities that way. Are they going to use him like part of the Ray Allen, Wayne Ellington package, Duncan, etc.? I
think you would have to. I mean, if he's going to be playing next to Lowry, Bam, and Jimmy, you have to create space. He is the floor spacer in that unit. I think you're going to have to figure out ways to run him off screens. I'm just really interested to see because we saw that two-man game between him and Bam develop as we got late into the regular season into the playoffs last year, but that was with the ball in Tyler's hands. Now, we could still see that, but now you're asking Jimmy to space the floor? Okay, he's already said he's not taking any threes this season, basically. Again, I think he's exaggerating. Kyle Lowry, he's a good three-point shooter. He'll space the floor. Kayla Martin, as long as that three-point shot keeps is where it was last year, he'll space the floor a little bit. So you'll have opportunities for that two-man game, but also you're going to have to see it off the way that Duncan Robinson and Bam have that two-man game. Like, I think we're going to have to see Tyler Herro coming off screens. At least I think that's the best version of that offense, especially if Jimmy has the ball in his hands. I guess Kyle Lowry, or I guess Tyler Herro is respected enough as a three-point shooter to stand 30 feet away from the basket and just space the floor that way. I'm not saying he doesn't, but you'd like to see a little bit more movement, I think, offensively for him, just to hit that next level, to be a $32 million player. I think you have to add those wrinkles.
What did you see from any of the young players? I know Nikola Jovic had a couple of nice plays. Did any of the other guys like Highsmith or Darius Days, a new Heat fan favorite, did they get any kind of significant playing time or have any kind of impactful moments on the floor?
I saw Days grab some rebounds late in the game. Jovic was very up and down. He looked really lost on both sides, defensively, offensively. Did hit a step-back three, which was cool. Okay. And then that kind of gave him a little bit more confidence, a little bit more pep in his step, and he seemed to play that way after that. But he's very lost. He's very raw. I just don't, when we talk about rotation minutes, I just don't see them early for Jovic. I think this is much more of a developmental project, as you and I have been saying since they basically drafted him. Haywood Highsmith looks great. He still looks great. I think that he's got a real chance to get minutes at that power.
6'6", he's a legitimate player out there.
6'6.5", I guess. Yeah. But those were really all my notes. Oh, last one. No Victor Oladipo. He was out for rest. No Gabe Vincent nursing that knee. Gabe Vincent did partake in scrimmages in the Bahamas, but they're just being careful with him, so still nursing a knee tweak. And then no Udonis Haslem, because why would he do this? He's Udonis Haslem. He doesn't have to do this.
You see that? You're talking about people paying $1 to go see Jimmy shoot. I think they'd be much more happy to see Udonis out there.
Udonis Haslem gave like speeches before and after the game. He was very much a part of the festivities.
He's the mayor.
He acted like it too. Yeah, that was great. And then last note here, Marcus Garrett and Haywood Highsmith competed in a fruit by the foot eating contest between the third and fourth quarter. And nice. Haywood Highsmith smoked Marcus Garrett. Smoked him.
Okay. Yeah, I don't even want to know what that entails, but
it's fruit. You have one fantastic. Fruit by the foot, right? The long.
Not really.
It's this long. It's like a 1 inch wide fruit roll up, basically, but it's like, I don't know, 3 feet long probably or something.
Okay.
And it's all colorful. I think theirs was the blue raspberry flavor, where I could see from my media seat, in case anybody was wondering. And basically the idea was they put the top end of the fruit by the foot in their mouth, and then let the rest of it fall, and then they have to just basically, not using their hands, eat the entire thing and chew it and swallow it before their opponent could. And Haywood Highsmith was a pro. It's like he did it before, so.
It's Heat culture for you right there, I guess.
Yeah, Marcus Garrett's only been around he's been on and off. Haywood Highsmith's been around for the postseason. He's got them playoff minutes helping him. It's clutch.
Yeah, I'm sure Spo and the trainers weren't too happy about seeing him eat all that sugar. But,
Erik Spoelstra was cheering him on so hard from the sideline. He was so interested in the contest. I think Haywood Highsmith might have won a starting job.
I don't think that's quite what it takes.
We got to see Highsmith and Kayla Martin go at it.
Yeah. That's the challenge right there. I think if we see Spo go fully crazy at one point, we're just like, you know what? I saw what Highsmith did during that fruit roll-up contest. He's our starter moving forward. I'd love to see it.
Clutch Gene, man, intangibles. That'll do it for us today. Thank you again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Remember to subscribe to new episodes of Locked On Heat on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. Now make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 daily fantasy basketball show on the planet. It's free and it's available wherever you get your podcasts. We will be back Tuesday night with a recap of the Miami Heat's preseason opener against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So make sure that you subscribe and follow along. Thanks for joining me, David.
You got it, Wes.